Every team wants something, but no team seems to want to be number one in the power rankings. Let's see what the Scroll of Wisdom says actually is the number one team. First of all, the scroll sees those rising who are expected to fall. Resilience writes its own prophecy. We have an honorable mention. This is a team we highlighted last week, and I said that they probably were not going to pass the test. Well, they did. The Cincinnati Reds took 2 out of 3 from the Guardians and 2 out of 3 from the Tigers. I said they were going to fail, and they proved me wrong. They're now only 3 games out of a National League wild card spot. Yes, believe it or not. Ellie came alive with 4 home runs this week, and we mentioned him previously, but Andrew Abbott, he's 4-1 with a 1.65 ERA over his last 5 starts. Absolutely dominant. They have a chance to build on this momentum as they face the struggling Twins and Cardinals this week. Desperation sharpens the blade. These teams, the scroll says, aren't done swinging, but not quite ready for the top 10. We have our honorable mentions for this week. First of all, the Boston Red Sox. They seem to have the New York Yankees number, winning 5 of their last 6 games against them over the last 2 weekends. They also took 2 out of 3 from the scorching hot Rays this week. With the trade of Rafael Devers that just happened this evening, will this team get even stronger through subtraction, or are they waving the white flag? It'll be interesting to see how the whole team responds to that move. They got a lot of talent in return in this trade. Jordan Hicks, Kyle Harrison, Jose Bello, and last year's first-round draft pick, James Tibbs III. But Red Sox fans must have flashbacks to Mookie Betts anytime they make a trade like this. Can they replace Devers? Well, Cedar Rafaela, if I'm saying that right, and Trevor Story, they both hit over 300 this week, and they're going to need to continue those numbers to help support this lineup. Garrett Crochet leads their pitchers, so the reinforcements they got from this Devers trade are definitely welcome. They are at the Mariners and the Giants this week. Awkward. Anyway, they also have a chance to prove that they got the right side of the trade and they won it in this upcoming weekend series. Also, an honorable mention, the Texas Rangers. They have a plus 27 run differential that says maybe they're due for some positive regression, and maybe we're starting to see that right here and right now. Maybe they're ready to make that run up the standings. They keep winning as the other teams around them, AL Central, yeah, AL Central. Anyway, they keep tanking. Evan Carter slugged .889 this week. It is time to get Jacob deGrom back in the All-Star game for the season. He's 6-2 with a 2.19 ERA and a .91 WHIP. That's for all of his starts this whole season. He has been spectacular once again. They have been taking advantage of struggling teams over the last few weeks, and they have 2 more coming up this week to keep this run going, the Royals and the Pirates. And our last honorable mention, the Arizona Diamondbacks. What a bounce back after getting swept by the Reds, which honestly doesn't seem quite as bad after what the Reds were able to do to the Tigers and the Guardians. They bounced back in sweeping the Mariners and taking 2 out of 3 from the Padres this week. Josh Naylor is definitely leading the way for the offense, hitting .478 this past week, and Merrill Kelly is stepping up in the absence of Corbin Burns. But it really still feels like they need more pitching. Trade time for the Diamondbacks? I think so, as long as they can stay close. If they can ride the momentum and beat up on the Blue Jays and Rockies this week, they could get back into wild card contention really quickly. Momentum fades fastest when pride replaces hunger. We have one team that dropped out of the top 10 this week. That is the Toronto Blue Jays. Look, they were really close. We had them ranked at number 11, and they almost made the cut. But the Phillies humbled them this weekend. And as is the case with many teams, you can't just judge them on the hot streak the Blue Jays have been on a torrid pace. You have to see what happens after they hit a rough patch. Former hot teams like the Twins and the Royals are failing and falling fast. Can the Blue Jays avoid the same fate? Well, if they do, they're going to be relying on guys like Ernie Clement and Alejandro Kirk. Alejandro Kirk is definitely in the running to be the number 2 catcher in the American League behind Cal Raleigh, and they were just keeping the offensive wheels spinning for the Blue Jays this week. But is that going to be enough? I think they're going to need some more from some of their big boppers. Chris Bassett, he's 2-0 with a 1.07 whip and a 212 batting average against over his last 3 starts, but he also needs run support. And I think that's the problem with a lot of these teams. They need more pitching. The Blue Jays have home series this week versus the surging Diamondbacks and the White Sox to get back on track. So let's see what they can do with that. Survival is not dominance, but it's still part of the scroll. In the scroll of wisdom at number 10, the San Diego Padres. Look, like I said, we almost had the Blue Jays in this spot, and the Padres almost didn't make the cut, but at least they salvaged the Diamondbacks series with a win today. Fernando Tatis Jr. is hitting like crazy and building an all-star resume. Make sure you get your votes in for whoever you want to see in the all-star game. Dylan Cease and Nick Pivetta are a great 1-2 punch, but Stephen Kolek has been providing some underappreciated innings and starts here recently for the Padres. They get a 4-game set versus the Dodgers at home to try to avenge the series loss that they had against the Dodgers last week. And then after that, the struggling Royals are waiting in the wings. In the scroll of wisdom at number 9, the Tampa Bay Rays. Look, I really wanted to move them higher, but they just need to prove a little bit more. They just got to be a little more consistent here. But this team is sizzling hot, and I say this as zero slight. They absolutely demolished and destroyed my New York Mets, tore them apart from start to finish this weekend. You could easily make an argument. I had them in some versions of this ranked as high as number 6, but I'm going to settle in the conservative spot here just because I don't want to feel like I have to drop them if they start to struggle a little bit. But they are on pace to move up and keep moving up fast. What I noticed from the team this weekend is they are scrappy and they will take advantage of any mistake that you make. They had a slight hiccup versus the Red Sox in the middle of the week, but they dismantled the Mets. There's no sugarcoating it. It was not close and it was not competitive. They have been one of the best teams in baseball over the past month, and they don't look to be stopping anytime soon. Yandy Diaz is one of the hitting leaders for the Rays, and Shane Baz and Drew Rasmussen have been lights out. They're combined 4-0 with a whip just over 1 over their last 6 starts. They have 7 home games against the Orioles and the Tigers this week, teams that are both having things to play for, but it also gives them a great opportunity to solidify their playoff push. Oh, and if I didn't mention it, they are the number 1 wildcard team in the American League as we speak. In the scroll of wisdom at number 8, the New York Yankees. I'm not really convinced that the Yankees are this bad, but it remains to be seen if the Red Sox just have their number as a rival or if the Red Sox have actually found a weakness that other teams can exploit. They are still tops in the American League East by 3.5 games, so it's definitely not panic time. But losing to your rivals this bad in back-to-back weekends, again, losing 5 games in a row to the Red Sox, I was trying to find out the last time that happened. This is not fun. Paul Goldschmidt hit 300 this past week, giving balance to this lineup that is heavily judge-focused. Max Fried had a little bit of a step back after his phenomenal April, but he has been on over his last 3 starts. He's got 20 strikeouts in his last 20 innings of pitching. I expect that they're going to have a get-right series against the Angels and the Orioles this week, but that remains to be seen. In the scroll of wisdom at number 7, the San Francisco Giants. They beat up on the Rockies this week, but they couldn't slay the Dodgers Dragon this weekend. After taking the first game of the series, they lost the next 2. But Rafael Devers is on the way, and the Giants became a much more interesting team with him, and certainly much, much more interesting once Matt Chapman comes back from injury. Logan Webb may have only 1 win in his last 3 starts, but if you look deeper, you're going to see he has a .81 whip with a 189 batting average against in those 3 games. Absolute fire. Let's see if they can beat the floundering Guardians and surging Red Sox at home this week. In the scroll of wisdom at number 6, the Chicago Cubs. They continue to struggle against any team that has a pulse. Their most recent series against good teams, they lost a series to the Mets, they lost a series to the Dodgers, they lost a series to the Tigers, they lost a series to the Phillies. Okay, they have been struggling to beat some of the better teams. Now, I understand they did win a series against the Dodgers as well, but if you look at it, most of their wins over their past month and a half have been against easy teams, which is what good teams are supposed to do. They're supposed to win those games. But I do think that their overall record is inflated because of the sheer amount of poor teams that they got to face in a row. Until they can prove that they can beat good teams, I'm just considering that this record is partially a product of being a good team, but also partially a product of beating up on a bunch of bad teams. That being said, even when Pete Crow Armstrong's bat slows down, he is still a threat on the base paths with 7 steals over the last 2 weeks. Matthew Boyd and Jamison Taillon are dominating the mound. Over their last 6 combined starts, they're 4-1 with a sub-1 whip. Series this week will be against the Brewers and Mariners. This is going to give them a chance to change this narrative that they can't beat teams with winning records, or reinforce it that what we see is true. I think this is going to be a great test and a great week for us to get a real good, honest viewpoint of where the Cubs are at this point. In the scroll of wisdom at number 5, the Philadelphia Phillies. Yes, they came all the way from outside. We dropped them out of the top 10 last week, but they stormed back with a vengeance. They took 2 out of 3 from the Cubs, and they swept the formerly red-hot Blue Jays. Alec Boehm has been stepping up in the absence of Bryce Harper. He had an 1189 OPS this week. He and Otto Kemp both have matching .417 batting averages for the week as well. Ranger Suarez has been leading the pitching staff. He's 3-1 with a .83 ERA over his last 5 starts. Absolutely spectacular and clean. They have a 4-game set against the Marlins, but really all eyes are on the Mets series next weekend, because if they can position themselves correctly, will be aiming to take over first place in the NL East once again. So we'll see how that plays out. In the scroll of wisdom at number 4, the Houston Astros. They're tied for the longest winning streak in baseball at 5 games, tied with the Red Sox. They haven't lost a series in about a month, and they've opened up a 4.5-game lead in a division that looked to be under control by the Mariners just a few weeks ago. Jose Altuve and Jeremy Pena are leading the offense. It feels like 2022 all over again. Framber Valdez has won his last 5 starts in absolutely dominating fashion. They face the Athletics and Angels this week. And honestly, this is a great opportunity for them to pad their AL West lead and really leave no doubt that they are the best team in their division. Before we get to the top 3, just want to say a special thank you to the patrons who financially support this channel. If you want to be a part of this growing team that allows me to bring videos like this to you, please check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Metropolitans. There's a link down in the description below. You'll get early access to videos like this. Excellence becomes expectation. Only the scroll remembers how hard it is to stay great. In the scroll of wisdom at number 3, the Los Angeles Dodgers. They have faced down challenges this past week from both the Padres and the Giants, and they continue to lead the NL West, winning in those challenges. Max Muncy might actually be their best hitter from the last couple weeks. He has a 1,046 OPS over those last 2 weeks. And Clayton Kershaw is suddenly in mid-season form, and he looks absolute ageless. He is 2-0 with a 2.16 ERA in the month of June. They get 4 more against the Padres this week and a cakewalk schedule after that of the Nationals, Rockies, and Royals to end the month. In the scroll of wisdom at number 2, the New York Mets. Look, I get it. Here are the 3 words that I wrote down to describe this series that they had against the Rays. Yuck, disgusting, despicable. Yes, the Rays are a hot team, but the performance by the Mets this weekend was putrid. That being said, every team is allowed a bad series every now and then. For example, the Dodgers got swept by the Angels just about a month ago. Okay, but the absolute failure of pitching in this series, along with Kodai Senga going down with injury, could be a warning sign for a team that has been carried by their pitching so far. Let me give you the counterpoint and why I still have them at number 2. They still own the best record in the National League. They still won the season series against the Dodgers and own the tiebreak over the Dodgers. Juan Soto is number 3 in OPS, and Pete Alonso is number 5 in OPS over the last 2 weeks. And David Peterson is the current number 1 starter with Senga on the shelf. He's 3-0 with a .99 whip over his last 5 starts. He is someone who should be seriously getting all-star consideration, especially with Senga going down, and the Mets desperately need him to anchor this rotation in a time of turmoil right now. Their next 10 games are all against in-division rivals, Braves and the Phillies. And I already see it from Mets fans, cocky that the Braves are trash and they're going to be able to destroy them. I don't buy it for 1 second. I have not counted out this Braves team as of yet, but this is an opportunity for the Mets to wash away a horrible, putrid weekend and put a hurting on their rivals. Or it's a time for them to fall apart. We're going to know a whole lot more about this Mets team and what they're made of in 1 week. And last, in the scroll of wisdom at number 1, the Detroit Tigers. They were not supposed to be number 1 again. It seemed until this weekend that the Mets had this spot locked up, but the Tigers fans can rejoice that the Rays humbled the Mets. Similar to the Mets, though, losing a series to the Reds is only forgivable if you bounce back quickly. And the narrative that the AL Central is the best division in baseball, well, that appears that it was just fool's gold that I bought into with that. We talk a lot about Riley Green, and rightly so. But Gleyber Torres and Javi Baez combined for a roughly .350 batting average together this past week. It is Tariq Skubal's world, and he is the best pitcher in baseball, I believe. Sorry, Skeens. They face the Pirates in 4 games this week, but someone needs to tell these two teams that we have to have the Skeens versus Skubal matchup. Right now, they're scheduled to pitch on different days. One is scheduled to pitch Tuesday and the other Wednesday, I believe. Let's make the Skeens versus Skubal matchup happen. MLB, you need to flex your muscles on this because baseball needs to have this matchup. All right. Anyway, those pesky Rays, though, the team that helped the Tigers, are going to be trying to take them out next weekend. Let me know what I got right and what I got wrong down in the comments below and leave your top 10 there as well.